The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
This is my 33rd year of doing sports radio in Washington. I was doing sports radio before the 24-year reign of terror from Dan Snyder. I have never said this before. I think this Washington football team is going to win the Super Bowl. Yes, I do. And I am not a glass full person. I'm a more half full person. But this is remarkable. They are a game away from going to the Super Bowl with the greatest rookie quarterback we have ever seen. This is so diametrically opposed to what we've seen over the last quarter century. It's hard to get your head around it, but look, it's real. It's the real deal. And Jaden Daniels has come along at a time when he was needed the most and was certainly seen as somebody who could help to turn this franchise around, but not in one season. I mean, come on.
To dream the impossible dream. To fight the unbeatable foe.
Yeah. I mean, we couldn't have fought this. You wouldn't have dared to dream this. You wouldn't do it. They'd put you in a mental institution. This is not supposed to happen to a team that had a complete overhaul in the offseason. New coach, general manager, roster turnover of about 60%. Aging veterans brought in. We don't know how much is left in the tank. I mean, this is incredible. This is absolutely incredible what we're watching here. And if this team goes on to win the Super Bowl, I think it is one of the greatest stories in the history of sports and certainly one of the greatest stories in the history of the National Football League. Maybe the only thing we could compare this to is what the Rams did in 1999. Remember 1998, they had won only 4 games. In the offseason, they had signed Trent Green, quarterback, who had a really good year the year before here when he took over for Gus Frerotte, and I think they won something like 6 of their last 10 games after a horrible start. And he was their big free agent signing. Oh, yeah, they had this former Arena League guy hanging around the roster, played in 1 game the year before. His name is Kurt Warner, 28-year-old backup, classic journeyman guy. And Trent Green goes down in the preseason. Kurt Warner takes over. Greatest show on turf happens, and they go on to win the Super Bowl. This could be a comp. And really, if you look at how quarterbacks develop, it wasn't like, this was the first rodeo for Kurt Warner. He'd been in camp with the Green Bay Packers, and that he had a year of experience with the Rams the year before. And to do what he did was certainly remarkable, but this, I think, would be even more so for a franchise that's been an absolute disaster. And to turn it around the way they have, man. And remember the offseason, and we're going to go through this again this year, only fortunately the Washington football team's not going to be involved in it. But all the things that get said about the draft going in and which quarterback is going to go number 1 and who's going to go number 2 and who's sliding up the board and who's sliding down the board. And this quarterback may not want to play with that team, and the father wants part ownership. And, oh, my God, they had this Top Golf event. And the Commanders, who are almost certain to take Jaden Daniels at number 2, insulted him by bringing other quarterbacks in. Oh, he's never going to want to play there. No. He loves it here. And he is thriving here. And maybe the Chicago Bears, a little less than a year ago, should have listened to ESPN analyst Dan Orlovsky.
If I were the Chicago Bears right now, I would take Jaden Daniels out of LSU. That is not a knock on Caleb Williams. That is a plus in Jaden Daniels. I think, number 1, when you watch all these guys play, the best thrower, the best guy against man coverage, ball placement-wise, is Jaden Daniels. Number 2, when we're talking about explosive play, like guys who have to throw the ball downfield, what does it look like? Jaden Daniels throws the ball best downfield. And then number 3, who's got the best pocket piece? When I say piece, it's P-E-A-C-E. All these guys are athletic. It's no longer like this plus. Every one of these guys has that attribute. the patience and the peace within the pocket, he's the best at. Candidly, I think when it comes to what guy had the best game, none of these guys' games compared to Jayden Daniels against Florida. If you just watch that player versus the University of Florida, you would go, that's the best player in college football, and he's going to be the guy that transfers the best into the NFL. Caleb Williams is fantastic. I think Jayden Daniels is better.
Dan Orlovsky, about 11 months ago. It was a known thing that Caleb Williams would go number one to the Bears. They didn't even bring Jayden Daniels in for a visit. Yeah, they looked at the tape, but no, this is a generational quarterback, a transformational quarterback. And that's not to say that Caleb Williams isn't going to have a great career. But if you did the draft again today, man, there would not be any question as to who would go number one. And I like the way Orlovsky put it. This is before we ever saw him take an NFL snap. Dan Orlovsky accurately said he's got pocket peace, P-E-A-C-E. Absolutely nothing phases this guy. Nothing. And his attitude after every game is, this is good. We did some good things. We made some mistakes. Got to clean it up and on to the next one. That is rare maturity, and that is something that we almost never see in any quarterback, much less a rookie quarterback. This was part of the roundtable yesterday on ESPN. Teddy Bruschi, who's won Super Bowls with the New England Patriots. Alex Smith, who was here, and his career was greatly altered by the broken leg, and also Ryan, Rex Ryan, who's a bit mouthy about things, but he's on board with all this. We haven't seen anything like this before. Starts with Bruschi.
He didn't blink. We saw the throws. We saw his fourth down conversions with his legs. I mean, this team looks to him, and they know that they can beat anybody. This wasn't even about this game. This is about them thinking that they are the best team in the world and winning a world championship, I think. I think they totally had the expectations to go in there and win. You could tell it from their quarterback. The unbelievable offensive line play because, I mean, he had pockets that he could throw from where he was clean 3-4 seconds, and when he didn't, he could escape and use his legs. Absolutely impressive performance from probably the best rookie quarterback I've ever seen.
I completely agree with you, Teddy. And the thing that jumped out to me about last night is, listen, there weren't any highlight reel runs from him. This was just NFL quarterbacking as it should be from a rookie, right? Mm-hmm. This is what's incredible. In 2 road playoff games this year, Jayden Daniels has 1 punt, 1 sack, and 0 turnovers. That is incredible, right? Last night, the Lions pressured him, and he had an answer. He got the ball out quick. He drifted. He made plays. 4th down, continually finding his guys. Look at that. That is an absurd statistic. On the road, 2 NFL playoff teams, and you're a rookie quarterback. This guy obviously is anything but a rookie. He's so prepared for this stage. And he embodies what this team is about, right? Dan Quinn preaches anybody, anywhere, anytime, right? These guys are fearless, and they got a QB who's fearless as well.
Well, and that's it. He's a hired killer. You say what you want. I mean, does he have a pulse rate? I don't know. But you just go in on the road and playing in that environment, dude's like, hey, let's go. Oh, it's 4th down. All right, rookie quarterback. He's throwing forward. He's doing whatever. Like, it is unreal. And look, here's what the NFL has to look forward to the next 10 years. That dude's going to be in the playoffs for the next 10 years. Like, he is that good. He's one of those type of guys. I said it, remember, early in the season, I said, every single team in the NFL is going to be looking for this guy. Good luck finding this guy. There's no way in hell. Like, he is so good. It's unreal. And, look, we can say what you want. But he's, taking an average offensive line at best and only gives up the 1 sack, all right? They play good against a JV pass rush, I get it. But it's not that. This kid is amazing. And then when you look at the defense, their defense, they got the 5 takeaways. That's outstanding, not taking anything away. Gave up 560 yards. It doesn't matter when you got this cat at quarterback. I love Jayden Daniels. I think he's absolutely spectacular. I mean, do you think they're going to care if they got to go to Philly, if they go to LA?
They won't because they just went into one of the toughest places. They outdid the Lions at their own game. Right? They rushed for 182 yards. They protected their quarterback. The trick plays, they got a couple on them, but then they play zone coverage. You want to try to get greedy on us and press. We'll just play zone. Sainris Still's another great rookie that had 2 interceptions last night. They're the ones that converted on 4th downs, 3 out of 4 on 4th downs. They took the Lions and said, no, we do this better than you do. They were clearly the better team last night.
Well, they were when you got 18 players out. Let's not get it. I've got to say this. No, I got to say this. Number one, like, I'm not saying taking away anything from the Commanders, all right? And it's not like they did it against Detroit only. They're the number 1 4th down team in the history of the National Football League. So you're surprised that they did it this way? No, this kid has been doing it all season. They convert at the highest rate ever in the history. So this team is outstanding. I mean, it is. It's outstanding.
No question. 3 for 4 on 4th downs in the win over the Lions. And running game was back to a large degree, but it wasn't the running game that Detroit had. You know, Detroit averaged almost 9 yards a carry in this game. Detroit had 201 yards rushing, but Washington had 183. And Jaden Daniels in this game carried the ball 16 times. Remember, he carried the ball 16 times in the opener against Tampa, and some of us said, oh, God, this kid ain't going to last. You can't do that and play quarterback in the National Football League. Well, in playing in his, 18th game, 19th game of the season, he carried the ball 16 times again. Didn't have huge rushing numbers. He had 51 yards, but he's learned how to protect himself. He took a couple of hits, but he's a different quarterback than he was in the first game, and if he can stay healthy, look out. This is just the start of it, but it's the start of it in a year that they can win the freaking Super Bowl. Let's not get away from that. Yes, the future is unbelievable. The next 10 years of Jaden Daniels could be fantastic. It could be like the Camelot years of Joe Gibbs, where they went to 4 Super Bowls in 9 years. They could do that, but for now, what's on the table now is within reach. They're 5.5-point underdogs against the Philadelphia team, which may or may not have Jalen Hurts available. Maybe he's playing games with the media. He did finish the game yesterday, but he's not 100%, and there's a knee problem. He put a brace on it. He'll have to be cleared by the medical staff this week. I mean, if he can walk, he'll play, but the reality is this is a compromised quarterback. Saquon Barkley's going to be a big problem, but they had big problems with Jahmyr Gibbs, too. I mean, again, Detroit runs for 201 yards, yet because of the 5 turnovers, Washington's able to dominate time of possession. They held the ball for 34 minutes. And as far as we get to comps, you know, we're looking at an MVP race, which probably came down to the 2 quarterbacks who finished up the weekend on the playoffs. Probably going to be Josh Allen, could be Lamar Jackson winning his 3rd. But you want to talk about the most valuable player? They may be the best quarterbacks, but the most valuable player in the NFL has uplifted a 4-win team into a game away from getting to the Super Bowl. And Nick Allegretti has had a remarkable career in terms of being in the right place at the right time. This is his 6th year in the league. He has been to the league championship game every single year. Made it 5 times with Kansas City. Played in 4 Super Bowls. Won 3. Played with maybe the best quarterback. He won't win the MVP, but I think if you needed a quarterback to win one game, you might take Patrick Mahomes. This is Allegretti on what he's seen from this kid.
Jay's special. There's times that they had a better call and had us beat, and he's making it right. There's not a whole lot of guys in this league, probably a small handful that can do that.
Yeah, he's top 5, easy. He's top 5, and you know the whole thing about him is his demeanor on the field, his demeanor off the field, especially on the field. I think Orlovsky nailed it. Pocket peace, P-E-A-C-E, and when he has to get out of the pocket, he's able to make the play, but he's not going to try and be a hero and throw his body at a defender. He'll get out of bounds when he needs to do that, but he gets it done, and he gets it done in a very nonchalant way. This is what we call a montage here. His press conferences aren't scintillating. You know, he's not a guy who blabs on and on and on, and especially not about himself. So these are pretty much the highlights strung together of his 6 or 7 minute media session after the win on Saturday.
You know, it was a very electrifying fan base game, atmosphere. So, you know, I was excited playing it, but you can't let the outside distractions, you know, distract you from what the main goal is, and that's to win. You know, it was a tough fight and a challenge for us. I mean, I always believe that we could achieve more than what people give us credit for, but, you know, you got to go out there, put in the work. You got to go out there, work daily, get better each and every day, and just put your head down and grind. And by the end of the time of the season, you look up, you might be in a position like this. Stay the same. Obviously, you know, media, everybody's going to put more magnitude on the games because it's win or go home. You'll have another game the next week if you lose. But you got to go out there and stay consistent. I love my team. I'm confident in my team. So we'll roll with the next game and, you know, we'll focus on that opponent.
As long as you got 5, you got hope. And they are 5.5-point underdogs going into Philadelphia on Sunday. I believe they can win this game. Daniels against the Detroit Lions. I understand a beat-up defense. They lost 6 starters along the way. But in the toughest of playoff atmospheres, he didn't break a sweat. 22 of 31, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. His quarterback rating 122.9, 51 yards rushing, no sacks, no interceptions. In 2 playoff games, as you heard Alex Smith say, he's taken 1 sack. He's had no turnovers. They have punted the ball once. That is remarkable. Some of it is that they go for it on 4th down, but they make it on 4th down. They were 3 for 4 in this game. Am I getting too lathered up? Does this not sound like the Andy Pollin you've been listening to on the radio for 30 years? Maybe not. But I believe it. I believe that this team can win the Super Bowl, which is stunning. I mean, every time I look at the schedule and I go, NFC Championship game, Washington's in it. Wow. I mean, yeah, Philly, you expected to be in it. Buffalo, you expect to be in it. Kansas City, you expect to be in it. You did not expect the Washington Commanders to be in this spot. You know who believed? You know who believed back in June? Terry McLaurin. We'll go back to what he said and then his comments from the win the other night in Detroit. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So back in June, Terry McLaurin showed up in Scott Van Pelt's studio, which he does his show from Washington and has done it here for several years. And Scott taking advantage of the fact that he does it here as the Commanders were wrapping up minicamp. He invited Terry McLaurin to come in and do an in-studio interview. And you got to realize this. I mean, it's hard to put your mind back to that time. It's not that long ago. It's 6-7 months ago, but it's a lifetime ago. And Terry McLaurin, going into his 6th year, had the misfortune of being with this team. Now, he thrived personally, got a 2nd contract, big wide receiver contract, but he had played with 13 different starting quarterbacks. He had been in 1 playoff game. And of the 5 teams that he'd played on here, was with 3 different coaches. And he'd had only 1 non-losing season in which they went 8-1. They were coming off a 4-win year. Even though Dan Quinn, when he was hired, said, I don't use the word rebuilding, I use recalibrate, everybody kind of snickered at that. Like, okay, the over-under from Vegas was 6.5. If they won 7 or 8, it was going to be a good year, right? I mean, that was the real feel back then. And, you know, Terry McLaurin took a redshirt year at Ohio State, so after 5 years, he's closing in on 30. And the window for wide receivers in prime years begins to close at that point. And he has never complained here. All 13 different starting quarterbacks, the coaching changes, all the upheaval that's gone on, the embarrassment of the Snyder ownership. You never heard a word out of him of non-gratitude, of being unhappy with his situation, asking to be traded to a contender, none of that stuff. I mean, even when he went through Eric Bieniemy, who was horrendous as an offensive coordinator, and the most he did, I think one game he was not targeted or targeted once, no catches. He said, I worked on my cardiovascular running up and down the field. That's as sarcastic as he got about it. So Scott asked the question, I think, that was very definite that you had to ask at that point. Hey, Terry, you're going into year 6 here. Your team hasn't won anything. I mean, are you concerned about the window closing here and maybe ending your career? He didn't word it that way. I'm paraphrasing here. But the gist of it was, are you worried about playing out your full career with a team that doesn't do very much? I mean, we've had players here who've had great careers. Ken Harvey made the Pro Bowl 4 times here as a linebacker. He had come from the Arizona Cardinals. I think he played 10 or 11 years in the league. He never made it to a playoff game, never once played in a playoff game. And, Terry McLaurin was maybe staring at that with the team that was possibly going to go through a 3 or 4 year rebuilding process, even though Dan Quinn wouldn't use that word. And this is how McLaurin responded to that idea that, his career might end without the kind of success that he's now enjoyed.
You start to evaluate when I'm in year 6 and you notice how fast it goes. And I try not to put the cart before the horse or looking too far ahead, but at the same time, you do want to win and you want to be a part of a winning culture and have a chance to win the Super Bowl and the playoffs and all those things. Like, that's why we do this personally. And I'm just excited with being a part of a organization and an environment where now, like, everybody's on the same page and the message is uniform and it speaks from the top down, and it reflects in the guys that they're bringing in. All the guys that they brought in are guys who are hungry, who are competitors, who not only fighting for spots but are going to help us win games. And when you're around an environment like that, that makes you excited. It makes you hopeful. And, you don't know how that's going to turn out until we start playing games. But the foundation is extremely important. And I think this offseason we've really done a great job of building that. They have, and then when Coach Quinn got here, building it with this team. So I feel like we're going to be going into this offseason really knowing what we all got to do individually to become ready for camp. But the message is clear to come back to camp ready to compete and be ready to win.
Now, nobody got worked up about that. Those are the kind of things that players say all the time. You're always optimistic going into a season. But he was saying things there that if you listen closely, it's like, hey, this is really different. These people are running things in a different way, and I believe in it. And he has thrived. He's had his best year. He had 13 touchdown catches this year, which set a record for Washington receivers. He did not have a touchdown in the game on Saturday night, but he did have a touchdown off the screen pass. What am I talking about? He caught 4 passes? Let me get the number here. Terry McLaurin, 4 passes for 87 yards and the touchdown, and continues to be an enormous contributor on and off the field for this team. So this is what he said back in June. I mean, you'd have been nuts, and he would have been nuts to say, well, Scott, I know we haven't had a lot of success here, but I believe so much in this new regime here with Dan Quinn that I think we could make it to the NFC Championship game. And everybody would say, oh, yeah, that's funny, Terry. That's really funny. But now they're here. And this was McLaurin after the game Saturday.
The mantra, anybody, anywhere, anytime, that was today. And, they made a lot of plays, and I'm just so proud of this team for us to come out the way we did, play complimentary football, defense with 5 turnovers. The run game was alive and well through B-Rob, Eck, J-Mac. We lose Sam, which is a big blow for us, and Trent steps up. And the O-line did a great job of controlling the line of scrimmage. They gave Jaden all day to throw, and we knew they were going to come out in man. And our receivers, we like that, And the big plays were there for us, and in got-to-have-it situations we came through. So we're extremely excited for this win, but we're not done yet. We're not satisfied, but we're definitely going to enjoy this one, get a good day off tomorrow, and get ready for whoever we play next week.
And that, of course, will be Philadelphia on Sunday at 3 o'clock. More from Terry McLaurin. And you've heard this throughout the season, and, boy, if they make it to the Super Bowl, the word brotherhood is going to be worn out. All the out-of-town media is going to, hey, this brotherhood that you had. They got an early start with the off-season workouts. You're allowed to do that when you have a new coach. And Dan Quinn spent like most of the first week not even doing anything football, just having the guys get to know each other. He thought if they, play for each other, that would make a big difference. It sounds kind of quaint. It sounds kind of like Boy Scouty, like everybody sits around the fire and sings Kumbaya. But, man, it's worked. And this is McLaurin explaining how important it's been.
When you have a group of guys who believe in one another, who are selfless, who form a brotherhood, a real brotherhood from the day we first got here all together with DQ, we got really close. And as you guys see, this is a group that will be in the locker room way past hours just hanging and fellowshipping one another. And not only that, we take a lot of pride in the work that we put in on the football field each and every practice. We practice these moments. We practice for these situations and for them to show up and we execute when we need it the most. That's what a team is all about. And it wasn't easy playing a team like that. Like I said, you got to give them credit. They're an extremely great team, well coached, very tough. But we believe in ourselves too. And when you put a group effort like that together, offense, defense, special teams, special things can happen. So, you never know what could happen, but the way that we've galvanized together, we went through adversity in the middle of the season, and we finished the season strong. It's unbelievable to be in this spot, and we're excited.
You know the term, he who laughs last laughs best? So let's go back to the 2022 season. This is year number 3 under Ron Rivera, and they are playing a game early in the season against the Detroit Lions, and they lost the game 36-27. And Amon-Ra St. Brown had a big game. He ran twice for 68 yards. He caught 9 passes for 116 and 2 touchdowns in this game. And Tom Brady does this too, but not to quite the extent that St. Brown does. He was drafted late, okay. He was not a high draft pick. And, he's got an axe to grind against those who were taken before him. So in having this big game and the win for Detroit, he uses the opportunity to take a swipe at De'Ami Brown, who went before him in the draft the year before. And, the media from Detroit is a hail fellow, well met kind of people, and they're like, ha, 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 ha. So, again, this goes back to early in the 2022 season. Amon-Ra St. Brown, big game against Washington, looking across the field and chuckling.
Even the Commanders, they got a guy before me over there. I believe his name is De'Ami Brown. I don't know how many catches he had. You guys can probably tell me that, or how many yards he had, but I don't forget things like that. I see him across the sideline from where I'm standing during the game, and every team that I'm gonna give every team hell.
You honestly were watching a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't see him in the game much.
Hardy, har. Yeah, De'Ami Brown didn't catch a pass in that game, but he caught some passes in this game. In the game that Amon-Ra St. Brown's team was favored by 9.5 and lost by 2 touchdowns, 45-31. St. Brown got his numbers. He had what would be considered statistically an excellent game, caught 8 passes for 137 yards. But De'Ami Brown caught 6 passes for 98, and his team won the game. So he who laughs last laughs best. And De'Ami Brown had a few laughs after the game. Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't have laughs after the game. And this is more on Terry McLaurin and his leadership. And if you want to know what leadership sounds like, this is exactly what it sounds like. And, it sounds kind of hokey. It sounds kind of saccharine sweet. But we've seen it all year, that these guys truly root for each other. And so this is Terry McLaurin. He's had a great game. He's scored a touchdown. He's caught 4 passes. But he's looking at a guy who's been here for most of his time in Washington. He was drafted, I think, the year after, or maybe 2 years after. And he's looking at De'Ami Brown and getting emotional when talking about his development. That's what leadership is, and that's what team sports are all about. If you root for the guy next to you more than you root for yourself, it's probably going to work out. And this was McLaurin on a question, a simple question about De'Ami Brown, because Brown wasn't even playing much earlier this year, that they have had injuries that have caused this to happen. And, when they traded Jahan Dotson at the beginning of the season, I was stunned. I didn't even think De'Ami Brown was going to make the team this year, that he hadn't really done much over his first 3 years. And Doxson was a former first-round pick. He'd had a good first year. He didn't play very well last year partly because of the offense that they were running, which was ridiculous with Sam Howell dropping back to pass on every down. But I thought that that would be the end of Brown and they would move on. Well, he's thrived, and when he's needed, he's stepped up. And again, this is leadership. This is Terry McLaurin on the guy lining up opposite him.
Listen, I'm trying not to get choked up. Dang, I didn't know I was going to get choked up about him. But I've seen how hard he's worked since he's gotten here, and he's grown up so much as a player and a man. And, him and I have gotten a lot closer over his career. And to see him take advantage of the opportunity that's before him, I'm so proud of him. I'm so happy to see what God's doing in his life, the way he's just grown and matured as a person off the field. And you can see the way that his habits have continued to get better to be the receiver that you guys see today. And it didn't happen overnight. And it wasn't an easy journey for him. But at some point I knew going into this season, that he was going to have to step up. And when Noah went down, that was really tough for our offense. But when he stepped up the way he's been stepping up, especially in the playoffs, I told him the sky's the limit for him. He needs to continue to stay humble, continue to work the way he's working. And, the Lord's going to fight his battle. So you don't have to worry about when people are talking down on you, not believing in you. As long as you believe in yourself and you got a group of people and support around you who believe in you, that's all that matters. And so I'm grinning ear to ear, honestly. I'm so happy for him. When you got another guy on the opposite side of you who can win one-on-ones, especially against a team with man, that's huge for your offense, very huge. And so he got his opportunities tonight, and the way he bounced back after a tough PBU, that's a sign of a really good player. And I'm just seeing his trajectory continue to go up and up, and I'm here to support him any way that I can. But if we want to continue to have success, especially in our room, we're going to need him to continue to play big like he is. So extremely happy for him, what God's doing in his life, and just proof. The proof is there to, if you continue to work hard, stay humble, that anything can happen. And so, I'm so happy for him. He deserves this. We deserve this. And, our entire receiver group, man, we don't care who gets the credit, but to see guys continue to step up, get their moments, as a leader in that room, I'm so happy for him.
Terry McLaurin on Dyami Brown. And who'd have thought that we'd be at this point in the season and the second best receiver, the number 2 receiver, is Dyami Brown, and he's thriving in this offense because of the rookie quarterback, who is the best ever. Now, Daniels is the 6th first-year quarterback to take a team into the NFC Championship game or AFC Championship game. The other 5 all had great defenses and much different stories. Ben Roethlisberger went to a veteran team in Pittsburgh. He was not expected to play, but the starter got hurt, and he played that season and got them there. They got knocked out. They went to the Super Bowl and won the next year. Mark Sanchez went to the AFC Championship game as a rookie with a Jets team that was totally defensive-based with Rex Ryan as the coach. Brock Purdy didn't even get into a game until there were 6 or 7 games left to go, and only because of attrition at the quarterback position. But that San Francisco team a few years ago had a great defense, and he rode that, and that's how he got there. Joe Flacco, and he got hurt, to be fair. I mean, he that's where he tore the UCL. He might have been the first rookie quarterback to get to a Super Bowl, but the elbow injury kind of took care of that. Joe Flacco with a veteran Baltimore team got there as a rookie. And the other one is Sean King. I don't think anybody would put that name in that list. Roethlisberger is going to go to the Hall of Fame. Sanchez had at least a decent run as a quarterback. Purdy may get there someday. Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP. But Sean King? Yeah, Sean King, again, with a great defense in Tampa. That was the team that beat Washington and went on to the divisional round and went on to play in the NFC Championship game. But this is something different here. This is something different with Jayden Daniels. And if you look at other times that this team got a win in the divisional round, this is. I guess if you look at this list, this will serve as the 6th time that Washington has won a divisional playoff game. Technically, it's the 7th. They just didn't call it that because of the odd circumstances of the strike. But let me go back over the others that led up to this one on Saturday night. On Christmas Eve, and again, the league had a shorter schedule then, fewer teams, fewer playoff teams, so you only had to play a divisional round, and then you played in the championship game, so it was different. But 1972, they had won the division, and they got to host a playoff game. It was the first one they ever hosted at RFK Stadium, and they beat the Green Bay Packers 16-3. This was a run-based Green Bay team with two great running backs, John Brockington and MacArthur Lane, and George Allen used a 5-man front. They'd never done that during the season, but they dared Scott Hunter to beat them with his arm. He couldn't do it. They put Manny Sistrunk in the middle, and they held MacArthur Lane to 56 yards on 14 carries, and John Brockington had just 13 yards on 9 carries, and the only touchdown of the game, a 32-yard pass from Billy Kilmer to Roy Jefferson. That was enough. Washington won the game 16-3. The next time that they had a divisional game was 1983, and this is technically not a divisional game because of the way they set things up off the strike year. They only had 9 games played during the regular season, so they set up a tournament where they had 8 teams in each conference that would play off to get to the Super Bowl. So in order to win the Super Bowl, you had to win 4 games. And this was the second of them, and they beat the Minnesota Vikings 21-7. This was the John Riggins bow game. He had 37 carries for 185 yards. Joe Theismann threw 2 touchdown passes, a 3-yarder to Don Warren, and a 14-yarder to Alvin Garrett, one of the Smurfs, which is what I believe started the Fun Bunch. They were doing a tribute to Art Monk in that time, and they won that game to advance to the NFC title game when they hosted the Cowboys the following week and blew them out. 1984, January 1st of 84, this was after the 83 season. They were defending champs. They had outscored their opponents huge all season, plus 43 on takeaways, 561 points, which then set an NFL record. And they rolled over the Rams 51-7 with 3 John Riggins touchdowns. And it was capped off by Darrell Green's 72-yard pick six. A ball bounced off the hands of Eric Dickerson, and he took it in to put the exclamation point on the win, 51-7. They got by San Francisco in the NFC Championship game the following week, but got blown out by the Raiders in the Super Bowl. This was also Darrell Green running down Dickerson from behind. He had done it with Dorsett in the opening game. In this game, he ran down Eric Dickerson to just increase his legend. In fact, if you look at these divisional games, it's always something where Darrell Green plays a big role. January 3rd of 87, this is after the 86 season, they go to Soldier Field in Chicago and beat the Bears 27-13. Yes, Jim McMahon was hurt. Doug Flutie was playing, didn't play very well, 11 for 31 with 2 interceptions. Jay Schrader threw a couple of touchdown passes. George Rogers ran for 72 yards, and Kelvin Bryant ran for 46, so they were able to put that game away rather easily. They met again almost exactly a year later, January 10th of 88, in divisional game at Soldier Field. The Redskins won the game 21-17. Jim McMahon was the quarterback for the Bears that day. The Bears did lead 14-0, but Washington came back. George Rogers with a 3-yard touchdown, and Clint Didier caught a 18-yard TD from Doug Williams, and that made it 14-14 at the half. The big play in the third quarter, Darrell Green returned to punt 53 yards for a touchdown, and that's when they advanced to the NFC Championship game and beat Minnesota with Darrell Green knocking the ball away from Darren Nelson. He wasn't even supposed to play in that game because he torn rib cartilage returning the punt. But he took a shot, which he said wore off like in the first quarter, but gutted it out and made the big play. They advanced to the Super Bowl, and that's where Doug Williams had his big day. And the last time that Washington won a divisional game, a divisional playoff game before Saturday, was the seat cushion game. This was the 92 season when they had the Atlanta Falcons in, and remember Jerry Glanville had a big to-do. He had Evander Holyfield on the sidelines. He was then the heavyweight champion. They had MC Hammer, too legit to quit. Deion Sanders did a dance. They had been destroyed by the Redskins earlier in the season. They had 56 points hung on them, And this time, that wasn't necessary. Atlanta scored only 7 as Washington won the game 24-7. And after Gerald Riggs went into the end zone with a touchdown with 6.5 minutes to go to cement the game, the free seat cushions that were given out for the game were tossed onto the field, a sea of yellow cushions cascading down from the upper deck. And that's why the game is known as the seat cushion game. This game from Saturday, this is the Jaden Daniels game. This is the game, if you had any doubts as to how good this guy is, forget about it. As long as you got 5, you got a chance. So this has been incredible. And as I sit here after doing sports radio for 33 years and just looking at the dark cloud that hung over this franchise for a quarter of a century named Dan Snyder, and to say, I think this team can win the Super Bowl, that may stun you. It stuns me even more. We'll get to more on this in the next hour, more from Dan Quinn, and also the Philadelphia Eagles situation with Jalen Hurts. If he plays, how healthy is he going to be? We'll get to that and more. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. You know how it goes in the NFL. If you're walking, you're playing. And I would be stunned if we don't see Jalen Hurts on the field for the Eagles on Sunday when the Commanders go there. But whether he's playing games or not, he's leaving the door open for the possibility that he can't go. Really coy about that yesterday. You know, he had to leave the game, as you probably saw, and came back with a brace on the knee. And he does have to be cleared by the trainers, but I think the bar is probably pretty low for that. But they beat the Eagles here when Jalen Hurts got knocked out in the first quarter. And if he doesn't play on Sunday, even though the Commanders are 5.5-point underdogs, they could win this game. And I know, yeah, they can go to the Super Bowl, which would have been an absolutely ridiculous thing to say, even like November, right? I mean, if you said, oh, yeah, they'll be a step away from the Super Bowl and they may have a chance to get there. No, nobody would have believed this. And I can't believe that there was any kind of debate now. I mean, it's an inexact science, as we know. I mean, we've seen plenty of first-round busts at quarterback. We've seen a few of them here, like Heath Schuler, who was the number 3 pick of the draft and could not play. It happens. But there's no question that this is the greatest rookie quarterback this year and maybe ever. I mean, the rules were different. The thought process was different in developing a quarterback. Even if you took a guy at the top of the draft, you were either going to have to, hold your nose and suffer through the mistakes like Peyton Manning throwing 28 interceptions, or you had a veteran guy who you'd use to bring the rookie along slowly. There used to be like a 5-year period, even for a guy who was highly drafted. It was unusual to see a rookie quarterback start, and we've never seen a rookie quarterback succeed like this. This is incredible. And as you look now at where this team is and where they're going to go, we know that in the years to come, they're going to be a team that's going to be knocking on the door of the Super Bowl. But to think that they're doing it this year is something nobody could have imagined. The usual locker room hoo-ha. Dan Quinn, he has to have a lot of things bleeped out the way he does it with the media, a lot different than he does in the locker room. But the message that he had delivered from the day they opened up off-season workouts, anytime, anywhere, anyone, and repeated it after the win Saturday.
3 things, man. First one's this. Ball is life, man. Tonight. Talked about being heavy hitters, and you're for damn sure some heavy hitters now. Yes, from the first day we got together, it's on our wall. Anybody, anywhere, anybody. All right, I love you guys. Let's find out where it is tomorrow. Take our show back on the road. Yes, sir.
And they won't have to go far on the road, right up to Philadelphia, where they lost earlier this year. And that's why, I looked at this matchup going into yesterday, and I said, I hope it's the Eagles. Even though they lost to them, even though it's going to be cold, it's not going to be like it was yesterday. The long-term forecast is going to be like in the mid-30s by the time they kick off on Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. But I likened it to this, and I know it's a long time ago. It was a different team. It had many veterans on it, but it was year 2 under Joe Gibbs. And we've all seen the stand shaking with the "We Want Dallas" chant. And that was from the championship game that they played against the Cowboys in January of '83. But the "We Want Dallas" chant actually had started the week before. And it's when they played the Minnesota Vikings. It's when the big John Riggins 185-yard performance happened, and we took a bow. But that was a Saturday game. They played that on Saturday, and on Sunday, the Cowboys were home against the Green Bay Packers. And the winner of that would advance to the NFC Championship game. Well, in that odd year, that odd strike year of '82, they played only 9 games, and the one game that they lost was to the Dallas Cowboys. And the fans were feeling so chesty at that point that with the way Riggins was running the ball and the way he'd done it the week before against Detroit, that they wanted to see Dallas again to avenge that. And I think Washington having, had a tough time. Saquon Barkley had a big fourth quarter against them in Philadelphia. This would be a chance to avenge that in Philly. I know it's not, a home game like that one set up to be, but the "We Want Dallas" chant actually started the week before. They wanted that team and were happy that they beat Green Bay to get to the game where they, kind of blew their doors off. 31-17 doesn't really, give it justice. This was a game where Danny White got knocked out of the game, and Darryl Grant picked off the pass that it was knocked up in the air by Dexter Manley, and he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. All that. I mean, this is a different venue, but I think they want Philadelphia, and this is going to be a game that I think they can win. I'll get to more on the Jalen Hurts situation coming up. As for what happened on Saturday night, again, this shouldn't be happening to a team at this stage of the development. It should not happen. They should have been intimidated by the atmosphere there. It was loud. This was the year that Detroit was going to do it, as the old Bum Phillips line went. Last year we knocked on the door. This year we're going to kick the damn door down. All those things went into that, and they handled it. And they handled it at an arena which is known for being loud, which was amped up, legends on the field like Barry Sanders. This was their time. And Dan Quinn's team handled it like a bunch of tested veterans who were not fazed by it at all.
We knew this was going to be a loud environment, and it was. It was absolutely lit in a way that we wanted to use that energy also for our good and feel that vibe for it. So much of what we want to do in those scenarios can be done silent. And so whether that was use of a hand signal, like the nonverbal communication, we worked it. And so as opposed to, sometimes you may do one period or wait till a certain day, we did it every day last week, including our walkthrough on Saturday. And so we had, one set of speakers from the sideline, another one behind the huddle on offense, just to emphasize that, so you couldn't almost cheat yourself and use your voice. You had to go through it and kind of go through the whole process. But being a tempo offense does have advantages in spots like that, David, because you're not constantly changing at the line of scrimmage with your voice. There's other alerts that would go with that.
Brian Robinson, who had been MIA last couple of weeks, he had 16 yards rushing in the previous game. He had 10 yards in the game before that. That had been a problem. Brian Robinson emerged in this game. He had 15 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown, and he was among those not fazed by the noise.
I block the noise out, focus on what's in the huddle. Just listen, try your best to listen to what's in the huddle and block out all the outside noise. And we did a great job of doing that. The noise definitely wasn't a factor today. We didn't let that affect us. At no point did we let their crowd, affect us. So, that just goes to show you, how this team fights. Fights through adversity. Fights through anything we up against.
Quieting a crowd that is that loud.
Yeah, I love it, man, because, you think about it, they're extremely loud from the time the offense steps on the field, And then as soon as, the offense starts making plays and score a touchdown, you can hear a pin drop in the whole stadium. So I just wanted to, see if, that was going to be as loud as they were when we first came on the field.
Yeah, the other thing about that noise, and this came back to bite him in a number of ways, though the coaching staff should have been smart enough to call a timeout. 4th and 2 late in the game, and they're going for it. Could have kicked a field goal at that point, but they wanted the touchdown, and Tom Brady is screaming from the booth that the Lions have to call timeout because they got 12 men on the field, and it's so loud that the coaches are trying to yell, hey, somebody get off the field. Nobody did. And that kind of, was like a rebound effect for the Lions and their fan base. The running game. Robinson, I mentioned, 15 carries for 77 yards. They had, with Daniels getting his yards, 51 yards. They had 199 yards rushing in this game. 182 yards rushing in this game. And that was after a long stretch where they could not run the football.
For the last month, we felt stuck into that spot. And we knew we had to eventually find our way through that. And I thought the runners, really, played downhill and played aggressive. All 3 of the running backs had their impact in this game. But I was certainly impressed by the physicality of finishing the runs. And I felt that from Brian. It may not have been a long run, but there was one on the sideline. It was right over next to me where I was at. And I just felt that. And so that's a really big deal for us, man, having that kind of balance. And when we have that, that's what can make it so difficult, to defend us. And so having that, the run game and the time of possession to go our way, that was a big deal.
Well, the main deal was, and all coaches say this, you win the turnover margin, you're generally going to win the game. Well, they won it 5-0. 5-0 was huge for that, and probably none bigger. I mean, you look at this score, and it's 45-31, and it kind of has the feel of a blowout. But this was about to become a very close game. Detroit is driving at the end of the first half to pull within 3. It's 7-3 at the end of the first quarter, but there's a lot of yards. Second quarter was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. There were, 42 points scored in that second quarter? Incredible. Washington had 4 touchdowns. Detroit was driving for its 3rd, and Mike Sanderstill picked off the pass in the end zone to snuff out that drive. And you look at the score at the half, and it's 31-21. They're up 10, but that really easily could have been 31-28. And with a 10-point lead and coming off the emotional lift they got from the interception, you would have understood if they came out a little bit flat in the second half. They did not, and that was a point of emphasis that Quinn had.
The same intensity that got us the lead, we used the same intensity in the second half. And so I think we've all seen, sometimes when you have the lead, you can be tight because you want it so badly and you don't want to mess up. And I wanted to make sure in this game, we had actually talked about that the night before, we're going to have the lead in this game. And I want the same intensity that brought us the lead that we go finish them off. And so there was going to be a finishing element in that game. I just had a sense the guys were really prepared and really ready. And we talked about finishing a lot and what that was going to look like at the end of the game with a lead to go say, all right, this is where it goes down. And that was the thing I thought was the biggest thing. We're going into the second half with the same intensity that we did, coming into the half.
Well, I mean, technically, they didn't have the lead at the beginning because Detroit led 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. But he thought they would have a lead at the half, and they did. It was a bigger lead than probably could have been anticipated, but a team that had not really turned the ball over all year defensively has suddenly found life in that. They won the turnover battle, although it was only 1-0 in the Tampa Bay game. But now they win it again. So in the 2 games, they're winning the turnover battle 6-0. You're going to have a pretty good chance to win games if you do that. The other thing that's, remarkable about this, and this probably goes to a lot of credit to Adam Peters, who loaded up this team with defensive guys and loaded it up with guys who had playoff success. Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, people who had been leaders in other places and could step in here. We didn't know what they had left, especially Ertz. I mean, Ertz only played 7 games last year. He was hurt. Wasn't picked up till the end of the year. Nobody knew that he could have the kind of season that he's had, the impact that he's had. Nobody would have expected that. And Quinn was able to lean on that as they got ready to head into the playoffs, heading into the Tampa game, as he explained in his wrap-up news conference yesterday.
Before we played at Tampa, I had a couple of the veteran players who played in a lot of playoff games talk, and it was guys like Nick Allegretti, who had 16 games, and had Dante Fowler, may had 9, and Marshawn 8 or 9. So I had some of those guys speak. It's still football, and where do we go? As I got ready to go out with the team, I did feel a little, they wanted it so bad. They said, everybody just take one big breath, and you felt the whole locker room, and like, just let's go, be us. And I was glad that I did that, to make sure like this environment was lit. They felt it already. And I said, man, like, we're going to go play like we're capable of. And I thought they did a good job of that. Sometimes in a postseason game, you can feel over trying take place because you want it so badly. And so make sure, like, let's really be true to us. Like, we've got a real way about it, how we get down. And so, like, we're going to make sure we stayed consistent with that, even knowing that, like, there were going to be some plays that the other team was going to make. And that's what I said, man, like, chin down, keep swinging. Like, you're in a fight, and, like, they had a reverse for 60 or 70 yards for a touchdown. Like, keep chin down, keep swinging. And so I like that we didn't ride these emotions, like get into the next one, get the correction, whatever that looked like to go. And it's also good to do that when you're playing well. Go attack them again. Go attack them again. And so I thought there was an element of that with our team.
A couple more from Quinn. If he were another coach personality, some would say, look at us. We're the big underdogs. Nobody believed we could do anything. Vegas had us at 6.5 for over-under on wins. We won 4 games the year before. They tore apart this roster. There's 60% new players. There's a quarterback here. Yeah, he's great, but he's a rookie. No rookie has ever taken a team to a Super Bowl. He could wear that. He could wear that and wear it with pride at this point. He's not doing that. He's treating this like, hey, we're a really good football team, and we're going into the next game, and we got a game plan to win, and we're going to do the best we can to do that. And as we go through the season and the recalibrate, it has to do really week to week. It's like, okay, how about that? They after that opening game against Tampa, which everybody expected, rookie growing pains, team learning to play together, they reel off those 2 wins. I think that was the season, really. That defined the season, because they go to Cincinnati on a Monday night, they win that. This is after they had come home and beaten the Giants, but it was all field goals. If Graham Gano doesn't get hurt in that game, I don't think they win that either. But Gano got hurt. They were forced to go for 2 most of the time, or all the time, because they didn't have a kicker. The punter had to do the kicking, and he couldn't do it. And Washington won that game with 7 field goals, where the kicker's not even on the team right now. Those things are crazy. But they go to Cincinnati on a Monday night, they win, and then they go to Arizona and they win. That's back-to-back road games. They stayed together. The new ownership paid the price. They stayed in hotels. They didn't go back to Virginia to get ready. They went right from Cincinnati to Arizona, got adjusted to the time change, the whole deal, and were ready to go. So as all these narratives were being written about this team, like these plucky little lads, wouldn't it be interesting if they make the playoffs? That's not how Quinn was handling things.
We didn't want to let any narrative define us. It was just us. We knew how to get it done. We would stay together. In the difficult moments, we kept our chin down and kept swinging like you do when you're in a fight. But the fire was lit well before anybody spoke about us. Could they made it playoffs or not? Like, that was never really, what we did. I can even think back to months ago, Magic spoke to us, and everybody's heard process, and he added the word winning on the end of that. And so the process of winning for us week to week was what our focus was, and we really stayed disciplined to that.
Now, one last thing from Quinn. This was from Saturday night in Detroit, and he's always being offered these opportunities like, hey, sit back and, God, look in the rearview mirror. Look where we started. New bunch of guys, new coaching staff, many, many, many new players, rookie quarterback, the whole thing. It's not how he's approached it. And as they head into this game against Philadelphia, he's not thinking about making history and having the first rookie quarterback to start a Super Bowl. He's focused on the now. And this is how he answered that old, hey, look at what you've done so far, Coach.
You know what? I'll leave all the memories for the postseason. For us, it was honestly just into this game. And that's all there was, and that'll be the same this week. So there'll be a time to look back and reflect, but I'm not there yet, and it's just a matter of, like, can we put everything we can, and what do we have to do to win this week? And so the complementary football was what we talked about step by step hey, this is how we have to go to win this team. We're going to have to win in the turnover margin. We're going to have to be really good in the red zone. We're going to be bold enough to go for it on some fourth downs. And so that's really where the game plan was. And so I don't have any time to look back or look ahead. It's honestly just this group into this way. How do we win this game?
And that's coming up Sunday in Philadelphia. Commanders 5.5-point favorites against a team with a quarterback who's probably going to start the game. I would put it at 95%, but it's not 100%. And Hurts is a little coy about that knee injury as he talked to Melissa Stark in the media yesterday after the win, and we'll hear what he had to say as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Oh, I'm sure Bram will have tales to tell when he comes up at 11 o'clock. He called the game on Saturday night. We'll call the game in Philadelphia on Sunday, and has called the most magical season in the history of this franchise. No matter what happens, whether they lose by 4 touchdowns on Sunday in Philadelphia, whether they beat the Eagles and go on to the Super Bowl, this is a season that nobody could have imagined. Maybe in some ways you could look at 82 and say that was a surprise, but that was a veteran team that should have been in the playoffs just a couple of years earlier. They lost that heartbreaking game to Dallas in the final game of the season where the winner was going to win the division and the loser was going to be left out, and Roger Staubach in his last comeback beat him with a touchdown pass to Tony Hill, and they didn't make it. Riggins sat out the 1980 season. 81, Gibbs comes in. They're 0-5, but they finished up really strong. That team had a lot of momentum going into 82. We had the strike year, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. That was somewhat of a surprise, but a lot of veteran guys on that team. This is a team of spare parts thrown together with a rookie quarterback. And as you look at these championship games, this will be the sixth time, that NFC East opponents will meet in the championship game. And the others have been lopsided, and lopsided for the home team. You go back to 72 when they beat the Cowboys 26-3. 1980, the Eagles on their way to the Super Bowl where they got blown out by the Raiders. They beat the Cowboys easily at home, 20-7. Then the 1982 season, 83, Washington beats Dallas 31-17 at RFK. And then the last time this happened, a matchup of NFC East teams for the right to go to the Super Bowl, they were shut out. They lost to the Giants 17-0. The shot of Jay Schrader on the cover of the Washington Post with his hair sticking straight up in the air because of the wind, that told the whole story. Wind was swirling that day. Giants took advantage of it. It crushed Washington, and they lost the game. This could be a lopsided game, or maybe not, and it may not go to the home team. We shall see. I mean, these are things that are happening this year which we could not have imagined. Now, the big concern that I see going into this game is Saquon Barkley. Barkley had a big game against them in Philadelphia, though, maybe because Jalen Hurts was knocked out of the game, he really, he had some runs for sure, but didn't crush him. Washington came back to win that game as the Magical Mystery Tour was getting off the ground. And yesterday, he was unstoppable on a day when it was really tough to get footing. His touchdown iced the game. It was a 62-yard touchdown, though. It did get interesting at the end. The Rams had a chance, but it was snuffed out on a 4th down by the Eagles. But it was the 5th rushing touchdown of 60 yards or more this season. That's the most by any player in NFL history. He had over 2,000 yards and 13 touchdowns this year, almost 6 yards a carry. 33 catches, 278 yards. Boy, did the Giants look stupid. This is what a bargain deal. 3 years, $37.7 million, and he may be the X factor for the Eagles. So Washington has got to find a way to at least contain him. You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. But they did beat them with Jalen Hurts knocked out of the game here last month, and as Hurts wrapped up yesterday's game where he had to go out for a little bit, came back with a knee brace, and clearly wasn't 100%. Normally you'd hear a quarterback say, and maybe he's just playing games, but normally a quarterback in that situation goes, yeah, wild horses couldn't keep me from the NFC Championship game. That's not exactly how he handled it in the postgame with Melissa Stark of NBC.
I don't know if it'll snow next week, but rain, sleet, or snow, Eagles train to go. We'll be ready to go.
Do you love playing in the snow?
I love playing football. How about that? I used to put it on when we played a video game as a kid. I put the snow on the 100 and all that, but that was as a kid.
And now you get to host next weekend. I mean, what does that mean for the team and for all these fans?
Well, it comes through Philly. That means everything for this city, this team, and we got everything we want in front of us, taking it a game and a day at a time, but we'll go enjoy this one and move on to the next.
And I can't let you go. You and I were just talking about your knee. You went into the medical tent. You came out with a brace. How is this going to affect you next week?
Well, I'm sure I'll get asked about it later. I don't know if I can answer it right now, but I'm going to go enjoy this win with my teammates.
Are you okay?
I finished the game.
Yes, you
finished
did.
the game.
You finished and won the game.
Okay, I understand the circumstances of that interview. That's not a situation where you say, well, let's be up front here. You say you finished the game, but then you also say that you can't tell me what's happening here. It sounds serious. Is this serious? I mean, is there a decent possibility that you're not going to be able to play in the NFC Championship game? She didn't go there, but they pursued it a little more in the post-game news conference.
For this week, you said you'll see how the week goes. Is your status uncertain for next week?
Great question. No, I was just seeing how the week would go, seeing how things progress.
Okay, that's not definitive. Again, I'd be shocked if he doesn't play. I think Phillip Rivers one year played in the AFC Championship game with a torn ACL. He braced it up. So I don't know what the injury is, but I would expect Jalen Hurts to play. But the fact that there is some doubt about that, you got to wonder. At least, and maybe he's doing that on purpose. Maybe he's playing games with the Commanders. Hey, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? And remember, that was certainly a part of the difference why the Commanders won the game here last month, as he got knocked out with a concussion in the first quarter. So now there's the chance to avenge that.
Are you happy that you're going to get another shot at the Commanders after the way the last game turned out?
Just excited for the next opportunity.
It doesn't matter to the Commanders.
It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, well, they got to play somebody. So, it could have been Detroit, but they would have had to play on the road. So playing at home. By the way, if you haven't heard this, it's supposed to be in the mid-30s by the time they play the game. So weather, as it was a factor yesterday, probably not going to be a factor on Sunday when the Commanders go there. A couple of more locker room things. Who didn't play in that Philadelphia game was Austin Eckler. And Eckler is making his way back from his second concussion of the year. You can, argue whether that's a smart thing to do or not, but he is playing and is a big contributor. Had a big game on Saturday in Detroit, and Eckler is one of those guys who, came here as a veteran, a guy who you wondered how much was left in the tank. Clearly, he's got a lot left in the tank when he can play. And he's added a lot to this team on and off the field, veteran leadership, et cetera, off beating the number one seed as they did on Saturday.
I think it just proves that, hey, we're a heavy-hitting team. We've earned that now. There was some question from the media and everything. We know it, but you also have to go and prove it as a team, and that's exactly what we did today.
Hey, NFC Championship game, this is the kind of success you were hoping for, but if we would have said this earlier that you guys were going to be here, what would you have thought?
Well, we take it week by week. So, now that we're here, hey, let's go win this thing. Back in training camp, we're trying to put the plays together. We're trying to make sure who's who, and then we get into the season. Now we're taking it one game at a time. So you don't ever look too far ahead. You look too far ahead, you start looking at the wrong things. You always got to stay in the moment, and that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, it's not a lot of Super Bowl yak yet. That comes from the fan base, not the players. Another one, Clelin Ferrell, another pickup for this team. He's from Richmond. And here's how he puts it when people say, hey, aren't you guys on a magic carpet ride?
I think it's just the work that we put in, and the luckier you get, and a little bit more magic happens when you put in enough work. I think people forget that. It's not some special random season with us. This is just a group of men that came together with a common goal and ready to whoop some ass. That's it.
A common goal, ready to whoop some A. Okay, we'll see about that. I think, not just for this game, though it's, one game at a time, but with Sam Cosmi not only missing whatever's left of the season, the one or two games that are left, that extra little game in there that they could get to, the Super Bowl, with the torn ACL, then you got to wonder about next year. Usually that's a 9 to 10 month rehab, so he's not going to be ready for training camp for sure. And then you're looking at maybe late in the season where he can be a big addition. They're paying him anyway. I mean, he's going to be on the team. He's got that contract extension that he signed before the season, 4 years, $74 million, and he's a good player. But that's one that, it's not an immediate thing. They're going to be okay. Trent Scott did a pretty good job filling in on Saturday night. They also got Chris Paul, who's been on the roster for a while, and Michael Dieter, who got worked, by the way, didn't have a good game when he had to fill in as the backup center. But they've got some options there, but it is a long-term concern with Cosme, and you wonder, with a lot of cap space, what they're going to do in the offseason. One of the names I saw thrown around is Brandon Sheriff, whose big money deal is up with Jacksonville, or at least they have an off-ramp on him. He was a Pro Bowl player here. They just didn't want to pay him and let him go. So that's going to be something to address, but that's down the line. Meantime, it's the euphoria of the moment and how long it's been since they had a championship game, and the feel again was so different then. They played the Detroit Lions with Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders healthy. He wasn't healthy in the opening game of the year where they won 45-0. But I don't think anybody had much doubt that they were going to take care of the Lions and go to the Super Bowl that year, which they did, and beat the Buffalo Bills handily. More symmetry and possibility of the magic carpet ride if the Bills go to Kansas City and win on Sunday evening. That could be a rematch. But, again, that's a long way off. But just think about this. There are 5 Commanders, 5 players on the team, only 5 who are alive last time they played in a championship game, and none of them, of course, remember it. Tress Way, who is now in his 11th year here, Zach Ertz, Cornelius Lucas, and Nick Bellore, he's mostly a special team linebacker, and Bobby Wagner. Those are the only 5 players on the roster who were alive the last time they hosted or last time they played in the NFC Championship game. So that's another level of, oh my God, just think how long it's been. And also, here's something else that people like me have to kind of get their head around after all these years of looking at this roster and looking at the way this team was run under Dan Snyder and just going, oh my God. As Candace Buckner put it in her column today, she said, the city that cried, woe is me, is at least not now Washington. It's Detroit. And what happened to the Lions really didn't even happen here because they didn't get that far. But there's the heartbreak. And she goes on to say, because of instead of carrying the region's burdens and playing as if they were haunted by the ghost of 1991, the Commanders played loose and, better yet, played like themselves. They went for it on 4th down and succeeded, 3 of 4, with trickery. They performed with a confidence and freedom that eluded Detroit. How can any team play loose when its fan base lives on the edge of emotional distress? Long-suffering Lions fans have never watched their team advance to the Super Bowl. Detroit is the last NFC team to hold that distinction, and with more than 7 minutes to play and the Commanders in control, hundreds of them couldn't stick around to watch and left. Another thing that I think you got to look at as much praise as Dan Campbell gets, and he's done a great job there. If you were watching down the stretch as Washington was trying to salt this away, he had a look of just panic on his face. I mean, you never see that from Dan Quinn. And it kind of reminded me of this. If you remember the 1983 basketball championship, where heavily favored Houston was playing North Carolina State. It's one of the great upsets in the history of sports, and maybe the biggest upset in the history of the NCAA tournament. They were a bad free throw shooting team. That was an Achilles heel for that Houston Fly Slamma Jamma team. And Jim Valvano kept putting them on the line, and they kept missing front ends of, I think they had 1-and-1s. Yeah, I think it was front ends of 1-and-1s. They didn't even have the double bonus then. So if you put them on the line in non-shooting foul, it was 1-on-1. They clank, clank, clank. And you see Guy Lewis hiding his face in a towel. That was kind of like Dan Quinn on Saturday night. You had that feel. And they were able to stay cool. I mean, they followed the lead of this quarterback, the Commanders, and able to salt away the 2-touchdown win. Just amazing. Coming up, Tom Brady takes a shot at Josh Harris, and I think it was warranted. I'll get to that and more. As much as Josh Harris has done for this team and done for this community in bringing a winning football team here almost immediately, what Tom Brady said, I think, has some merit, and we'll get to that more as we continue. It's the Andy Poland Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Graham's coming up at 11. We've got the national championship game here tonight as Ohio State and Notre Dame play. The Buckeyes are favored by 8 points. We'll get to some preview on that. Jimbo Fisher was on our morning show last week looking at the matchup and maybe how Ohio State was actually helped by the loss to Michigan. You know, it's crazy the way college football works now. It's more like the NFL. Well, it's been like the NFL for a long time, but realize how many games they play. They play 12 regular season games. If you get to the conference championship, that's 13, and you may have to win as many as 4 to win the national title. That's 17 games. That's a regular season now in the NFL. And if you stumble along the way, you have an opportunity to get back up now with the 12-team playoff, which is exactly what Ohio State has done, and they will win the national title, though there will still be criticism of Ryan Day, the coach, because they lost to Michigan. And we'll get to more on that coming up. But I don't know whether you noticed this. There were 2 things from the game not on the field from Saturday night. One, Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady decided that they were going to address the elephant in the room. There are 2 stories. One is, it's conflict of interest for Brady because he's interviewed both the coordinators for the Lions in his role as part owner of the Raiders. And if he's going to be doing a game and is going to be able to connect with them down on the field, that shouldn't be. The other story is that he's got a 10-year contract with Fox, 9 years to go after he does the Super Bowl this year. And is he going to walk away from that, or is he going to be convinced to get away from that so he can concentrate on his other interest, which is part owning the Raiders? And they addressed that, and they did it in a way of, hey, wasn't that a great experience for you to interview the coordinators? Like, they took it on head on. Like, I got nothing to hide here. Hey, it was interesting being able to do that. And then they said, well, we're going to be here together for a long time, he said to Kevin. You're going to have to deal with me for a lot. Like, he's going to serve out. And who wouldn't at $37.5 million a year? Who would walk away from that? Which I guess he says he's not going to do, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. The other thing was, this was fourth quarter. Washington's up by 2 touchdowns. Anything can happen against these explosive Lions. There's still time left on the clock. And as he has done in many games this season, maybe all the games, you saw down on the field the owner of the Washington football team, Josh Harris, standing there as Arthur Blank did. And Arthur Blank took it to another level as Brady and the Patriots were beating his Falcons 28-3 in the Super Bowl some years ago. And Arthur Blank was seen dancing on the sidelines only to see his team suffer a devastating loss. And so with Josh Harris down on the field, Brady said this.
I'm not sure Coach Quinn likes owners coming down on the field before the game's over.
Ooh, yes. You never hear Dan Quinn talk about that. But, yeah, he saw his owner down on the field with a 28-3 lead, only to see that fall apart as Tom Brady beat them in overtime. Now, we did have Josh Harris at the game. Unlike Dan Snyder, he made himself available to talk to the media, and a couple of people that I know, Ben Standing and Chris Russell, found him in the tunnel after the game, and they talked to him about where this team is and how he's feeling as a kid who grew up in Chevy Chase, rooting for this team, going to RFK, son of a dentist, and now in the position that he's put them in.
What would I said last time? Culture, talent, and people. When you have the right people, and I've been talking to a lot of people. What's going on in that locker room is different. It's different.
What do you think your 15-year-old self would be thinking right now?
Well, man, I'd be out. I'd be like elated and out. This has been a long time coming for the DMV, and I'm so happy to be part of it. And I'm so happy to be part of it for these guys, and they earned it. And let's go. One game from the Super Bowl, right?
One game. I know you're going
to.
I know you're going to deflect, but like Ben said, you grew up here, you're a fan, everything. You bought the team. To put it all into perspective, how do you explain this journey?
You can't put it in perspective. You just God. You can't really put it in perspective. The notion that we would win 4 games last year and be in the NFC Championship, and look, Jaden's a special guy.
But it's happened because of him.
Thank you, man.
It's happened because he made it possible.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Well, let's go. I look forward to seeing you wherever we are, LA or Philly.
We'll be there.
We're Team of Destiny.
No, it's easy to get there. It's Philadelphia. It's a short drive, and those guys will be there for sure. The voice that you heard at the end coming in, that's another part of this story. Jeffrey Wright, who went to summer camp with Josh Harris, actually knew his older brother, he said, a little bit better, but he is a diehard fan. Went to RFK with his mom when he was a kid. He talked about, sneaking into the tunnel to get an autograph from Mark Mosley. This is a genuine guy, and he said to Harris at one point after the game, he said, "Never a doubt." He said, "We can stop the run the ball, control the ball, win." That's an Academy Award nominee in Jeffrey Wright, who's not jumping on the bandwagon late. That's a guy who's been there for a while, and this is all part of the momentum that will pick up. I mean, this is going to be a big week here. This is going to be a week of a lot of excitement, and the local news stations are really going to wig out on this because it's an inexpensive deal to do. They don't have to fly people out to Los Angeles for this. They just take their news trucks up 95 and we'll be hyping the game all week long. We got the national championship game tonight, and probably would have spent a little bit more time on it, but there's more important things to discuss with the position that the Commanders are in. But after tonight, we're through with college football, which started back in the brutal heat of August and ends in the brutal cold, which we're going through here. Fortunately, it's a game that's going to be indoors at Atlanta. And Jimbo Fisher, who was bought out of Texas A&M last year with a pile of cash, sitting back watching what's going on, guest on our morning show on Sportsmanlike last week, looking at Ohio State going into this game, 8-point favorites against Notre Dame, maybe helped by the end of the season loss that they had at home to Michigan.
Well, I think so, because I think it changed the way they played. I think anything in as a coach, you're looking, how do I change it? Like if you're punishing a young man, how can I change? It's not you want to punish him. It could do, I want to change his behavior. And I think when they lost that game, I think it totally changed their identity, because everybody's saying, I'm going to fire Ryan Day. And it was on his pressure. All year you heard that if he lost to Michigan, he's going to get fired. And I really think these kids, it almost relaxed them a little bit, and maybe the coaches too, because Ohio State has a very talented team. And one thing that happens sometimes, you got to be careful of when you're a coach. When you know you have the most talent, you don't take as many chances. You say, let me just play a normal game, call the game, we'll win the game. And all of a sudden they didn't do that. And I think it's affected their play calling, and then even how they play a little bit of defense at times. Their defense is outstanding. Their offense now, I think Chip is calling a looser game for Will Howard at quarterback, and they're utilizing the receivers more, getting the ball to back in space more, and all of a sudden they have clicked and found that niche of who they are. So I do think it's a good thing, because it's changed their behavior and how they're coaching and how they're playing.
Coach, on Monday, both Ohio State and Notre Dame will be lining up to play their 16th game of the season. It actually resembles an NFL schedule in terms of the length of the season under this new college football format. I'm curious, from your perspective, how does that impact roster construction in terms of how these teams that have championship aspirations have to go about building out their team?
Well, I mean, depth has always been one of the biggest things that championship teams in college football have had. I think some of the advantages, some of the teams that I was on, we at Florida State, we were very deep. We had players waiting on players to play so they could come in and be first-round draft picks. When I was at LSU, it was the same way. And, Alabama's been the same way in the past. Clemson has had their run. And I don't know if depth in today's time, because of NIL, it's a lot harder to accomplish, in my opinion, because backups are willing to go get paid somewhere else and get starter fees at another school. So I think that is an issue, and I think it's very hard of, going through the season. There's a lot of luck to winning a championship with injuries. And I think that's one, Notre Dame, I believe, has one of their offensive linemen out going into this game. I think it's one or two. I know one of them for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think that I knew going into this, I said it would be interesting playing all these extra games, how injuries affect you, because your depth is going to be key. All the championship teams I've ever been a part of or seen have great depth and can accommodate injuries, or can play guys a lot during a game, so it's not the wear and tear where a guy would play 2 or 3 less games because he has a quality backup. I don't know if that's the case now. But I think both teams have been lucky as far as that goes right now, and so I don't think it'll affect this game coming in.
Jimbo, we're lucky to have you as a resource here as a national championship head coach. When you look at Marcus Freeman and Ryan Day, what impresses you about both of these guys and what they've been able to build at their respective programs?
I think what both have done this year is really steady the ship because Marcus, when you're the Notre Dame head coach, you're always under the spotlight. He loses a huge game to NIU, and everybody wants to fire him. Of course, everybody's been wanting to fire Ryan Day for 2 years. You know, and these guys, all they've done is eliminated the clutter and went out. And so both have been extremely impressive to me and how they've went about their business. The turnaround that Ryan's had for the playoffs and how he's got his team refocused and what he did. I mean, he's beaten everybody else in the country. And now he's showing that people are really appreciating. He's always shown what kind of quality coach he is. They're appreciating that. And Marcus did too. I mean, Marcus, all right, we lost NIU. You dropped us completely out. We can't have one little hiccup. We can't even look bad in a game. And all they've done is won 13 games in a row and haven't. I think I've been extremely impressed with both guys because I think the hardest thing in today's time is eliminating the clutter and keeping the main thing, which is playing football. And both guys have been able to do that. That shows the respect the players on the team have for them and how they've went about their business and how they've got their team in the right mindset to go be a championship team. Because there's a lot of teams out there that have the capability, but very few ever get the mindset and can eliminate the clutter and have the selflessness. And that comes from the head coach down. I think both guys have done a tremendous job of that.
We're talking with Jimbo Fisher, 2013 National Championship head coach at FSU. Of course, Texas A&M was their coordinator with Nick Saban at LSU back in the day. Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver, Ohio State, is unreal. True freshman. I'm putting you on the spot, but you're good with this stuff. Prior to Jeremiah Smith, the best true freshman that you either coached or coached against?
Wow. I mean, I tell you, we had a guy when I was we won the Sugar Bowl and had a team we had in 2001 at LSU that really had a great run, that had an unbelievable freshman. A guy named Michael Clayton was phenomenal. Of course, Jameis had a phenomenal run for us at quarterback. I'm trying to think of skill guys. Justin Vincent, that one year we won the national championship in 2003, he didn't start to the sixth game, and then ran for 12 or 1,300 yards and was the MVP of the national championship game as a true freshman for us at LSU in 2003. So, I mean, there's been some guys that have done it, but this kid is really special. I mean, he really is, and they're getting him the ball in so many different ways. And I think at the beginning of the year, it's hard to say that you can go get the ball to a freshman right off the bat. And I think it's his knowledge of what they've done and the consistency he's grown in this offense. They feel comfortable he found how many ways I can create for him to touch. And I think that's what they went into in the playoffs. And it's what it did is giving them identity. Because before, they had so many guys, you're talking about their $20 million roster. As you know this, everybody's got to get their touches or they're leaving. So they got 2 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end, a quarterback. And I think in the playoffs, they went and said, you know what? Let's go to who our best players are. Let's start there. But he is a remarkable kid. His size, speed, and I think that's one of the great matchups in this game. Texas was predominantly a lot of zone coverage mixed in with man. Notre Dame is predominantly a man coverage team who likes to bring pressure. And how many times do you want to isolate him out there in true one-on-one coverage is going to be a big question for Al Golden and the Notre Dame defense. And I tell you what, every time you play him man-to-man, you're holding your breath because he makes catches when he's covered. Not only does he beat everybody and get open, know how to run routes, and can catch the ball, the short ball, and go. He reminds me of Julio Jones a lot. When I recruited Julio out of high school, we didn't get him at Florida State. But that big, strong guy that can catch the short ball, that can also play over the top of you like Randy Moss does down the field or run away from you. So, and you can give him reverses. He's a reverse guy, too. I mean, and many touches you can get. He's just a very special talent. And, the good thing about college football, you get to see him for 2 more years.
That's Jimbo Fisher on tonight's national championship game. Herschel Walker, best freshman I saw, should have won the Heisman Trophy. They weren't giving him out to freshmen in those days, but he should have won it. George Rogers did. But he went on to a fabulous college career. Didn't quite live up to expectations in the pros, though he had a long career, but as a freshman, he was unbelievable. And finally, as they say on PTI, a melancholy happy trails to Jeff Torborg, who passed away over the weekend. He was 83 years old, played 10 years in the majors, managed in parts of 11 with the White Sox, the Guardians, the Marlins. No cause of death given, but here's something else. He was a catcher with the Dodgers from 64 to 70. I believe Johnny Roseboro was the number 1 catcher most of that time, but I guess he was Sandy Koufax's guy. He caught the perfect game from Koufax in 65, one of 4 no-hitters that he threw. He also caught a no-hitter from Bill Singer in 1970, and then he went to the California Angels and caught Nolan Ryan's first no-hitter in 1973. I got to know him a little bit when he was a manager with the Mets. Would have been, in the early 90s? Yeah, he was a manager with the Mets, and really a good guy to talk to, nice person, passing away at the age of 83. All right, that's a wrap for me. Much more hype for the NFC Championship game as we roll through the week. Bram will have plenty to say next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at